So I had mentioned at the beginning of the episode here, uh, you had recently been on a pilgrimage, a journey
Yeah,
to the promised land of New
New
Zealand.
Zealand.
And so for those who are still with us, and we did promise them we would talk about your trip here. So
Yeah.
tell us about your trip. How long were you there? Just give us the good details.
Yeah, absolutely. So we were there for a whole month. We were there from December 2nd till January 1st. It was 30 days. It was actually our honeymoon. We got married. We got married the year before. We were supposed to go the December before, but COVID, New Zealand was still closed down, so we pushed to last December, December 2022 instead of 2021. And so this was our official honeymoon. I had saved up all my vacation for 2 years to be able to vacation time to take the whole month off. And we were able to go over there. So it was nice. Got a lot of on credit card points. Our flights were free thanks to credit card points. So good on that for that. But yeah, so we started in the North Island, took a tour, went all the way down from Auckland um, to Queenstown, and then we rented a car in Queenstown and drove up the opposite way along the East Coast. Hit a lot of things up that way, and then drove all the way back up to Auckland and actually up past Auckland to the Bay of Islands, which is up towards the north part of the North Island, to end the trip in some nice beach days after being in a car for or a bus for 30 days. So yeah, so we did that. We got a little presentation if you want to bring it up. We can kind of talk through some of it. But yeah,
Yes. Just quick before we get there.
yeah.
So what were some of your favorite moments from
Mm.
the trip? Where like was it like where you were standing on Mount Sunday and you're like, holy crap, I'm at Edoras, or was it part of the wedded tour?
Yeah, yeah. So there's a couple things. So New Zealand is an interesting place because it's a very relaxed culture. And I am not relaxed. I definitely like my really fine hotels and fancy dinners. I think it's just because I travel so much for work. I'm just used to it for my work. But with New Zealand, it was fun because I think for me the best part was that all the things maybe it's not the best part, but all the things I didn't expect to like I loved, and all the things I expect to love I was like, oh, this is pretty cool, but I wasn't as excited for. So like the key Lord of the Rings locations, Mount Sunday. When you were up there, it's beautiful. It's absolutely gorgeous. You can see you're like standing on the place where the Golden Hall was. You can see where they shot Helm's Deep, or at least the aerial shot of Helm's Deep. It's literally only 3 miles away from each other. But for me, it was like the best part were actually some of the parts of New Zealand that were just so naturally beautiful on their own. I didn't even expect it. So my two favorite locations were actually not even Lord of the Rings. They're Hobbit locations. Outside of Hobbiton, you have where they shot the Troll Shaws scene, where the trolls eat the ponies, and there's the burned down little farmer's house,
Mhm.
and the troll shaws. That's a little farm called Hairy Feet Waitomo. Lovely couple who own that. They were not fans, and then they became super uber fans and know like everything there is. And they're like the best tour guides when they're touring their property. That place is just so stunningly beautiful. Every time you walk 10 feet, you feel like you're in a totally different world. There's like jungle, there's beautiful mountains. It's crazy. And they actually
Excuse me.
oh yeah, no worries. And they actually shot the Mirkwood scenes in Rings of Power there as well in the last episode. So they got a couple things there. And then the other one was actually Lake Pukaki, which is the place where they shot Lake Town, in Desolation of Smaug, and that with Mount Cook in the background. That was one of those locations where I didn't expect to care for, but my wife and I, we just sat on the shore of that lake, and it's like this glacier water that is coming down, and it is the craziest like Tiffany blue milk colored uh, uh, lake, and it's so crazy. So I would, it's funny. Our two favorite locations are actually not Lord of the Rings locations. They were Hobbit locations. But from the collective perspective, our day at Weta, I mean, how can you? I mean, how could you beat that, right? I mean, I got to meet. I didn't get to meet Peter Lyon, but I got to meet his apprentice Chris. He's a fantastic, lovely person. We talked a lot. We talked about Castle Kon, talked about making swords and whatnot. So that was really fun. Got to hold none of the. I didn't get to touch or hold any of the hero props, but I remember our tour guide at Weta, Daniel. He was so funny. So he's a big statue guy, and he knows Lord of the Rings like nobody's business. But hasn't quite got into the swords yet. So he holds up Guthline, and it's like the stunt version. So it's aluminum with a resin handle. And he's like, yeah. And so here we have a Rohan sword. I'm not sure whose it is. And then I was like, that's Eomer's sword, Deathline. He's like, oh, you want to hold it? Here you go. And he just hands it to me. I was like, so it was great. I mean, I got to hold like the stunt sword, and and it's funny because that was the first time I actually held an aluminum bladed sword, and I always kind of thought down on them because, of course, they're not real swords. But I can actually like now that I've seen it and held it, I was like, I like all my cosplay ideas are going off in my head. Like I can make if I can just get a grinder, I can just start grinding out like aluminum versions of these swords and then have like things that are, literally a pound or half a pound instead of 3 pounds or 4 pounds on my belt. And then they're not sharp and might be able to take them into things without being piece tied or anything. So yeah, that really got the creative gears going. Ever since I got back from Weta, I'm like trying to I'm like actively doing projects. It really it sparked the creativity in me again.
Weta will do that to you.
Yeah, I mean, they've got the shirt that say let's make cool stuff. So, yeah, that was crazy. That was one thing I didn't expect. I did not expect to come back from New Zealand and I feel like, I mean, I used to play video games or watch a lot of TV after work, and now I'm actually spending more time reading and doing things with my hands. I'm actively okay, I've got this lightsaber I need to solder. Let's get it done. Cool. And I think that's been the best side effect from coming back from New Zealand was that I've been a lot more chill about my to-do list and actually wanting to do it. It's inspired me to do it.
It's been a renaissance experience. Yeah, very cool.
From what I know of Weta, and just the culture of, I think they would love if they heard that, they would just be fired up, to hear that they've inspired you to be more creative and to make things. I think, they love that kind of stuff there. And if they can inspire just one person, I think, to do that, I think, so they'd be chuffed. I think that's how they say it in New Zealand.
Yeah. I mean, I will say, I got back home and then a couple of days later, after I bought the MSSC, I actually messaged Chris and I was like, hey, I bought an MSSC. I know that you worked on, you helped Peter with the A-Wins. Did you help with the Barmir as well? He's like, oh yeah, I remember helping on those. And then we just got talking. I was like, man, really inspired to grind some things out. So he actually sent me some materials of places to buy sword grinders and some of the materials and stuff. And so he was super helpful. And now I'm okay, I'm gonna get back, get settled in, and then that's gonna be the next multi-$1,000 purchase is a sword grinder, so I can start knocking out some of this stuff later this year.
Cool.
Right on.
So
yeah. Yep.
No,
Sorry,
go ahead,
Tyler.
Go ahead, Val.
Oh, I'm not. Kind of lost my place there on the interview, so I'm not sure if this is the right point for me to
well let's
jump in with my next question.
Let's do the slideshow and then we can follow it up with your question there, and we'll just have Revan here talk us through the geez, I got a lot of things open.
Don't share the wrong screen. We don't want to see that, Tyler.
I would never.
Yeah, pictures of Sauron out of his armor.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, give me. Well, how about while I look for the right window? How about you continue with your question there, Val?
I was just gonna say. So, I mean, New Zealand's always been a place that I love to travel, and it's always been a place that I've wanted to go to for a very long time. I've been to Australia, but I'd love to go to New Zealand. And when Lord of the Rings got made there in the Hobbit movies, that was just the icing on the cake. So it's oh man, put the two together. And so the tour is definitely in the plans. It's I don't want to say bucket list because that's hopefully I got a lot of years ahead of me, so I'll get
Yeah.
around to going there one day, me and the wife. And but it's always interesting to hear, obviously, your experiences, as those of others that talk about it when they go online. And but is there something that you like? What advice would you go to someone going there? Is there something that you wish you had known ahead of time, or
Yeah,
just
yeah, absolutely. So I think so. Especially if you travel a lot, you need to know what kind of like traveler you are to be able to have the best time there. So like my wife and I, we're not really backpackers. We like day hikes, but we're not really backpackers. We don't go camping. As I
yeah,
said, like I
same.
mean, I grew up really poor, and then I have a good job now. So like because of the way I literally travel, before COVID, I used to travel every week. I used to fly out every Monday morning and fly back every Thursday night for work before COVID. And so in 2017 or whatever, I spent like 170 nights in a hotel. So like I have a very specific way of traveling, and that does not translate very well to New Zealand. New Zealand is there's the Kiwis are so nice and down to earth, and their businesses are very small town down to earth. So even in the largest hotel in Twizel, which is where Pelennor Fields is, you know, not only does the bar close at 9, but like the whole like front area of this hotel closes at 9. So if you want to hang out with like people on your tour, hang out with friends, you're either going back to your rooms or you're going outside. So there's just like a lot of little things like that. I think the other thing my wife and I found out, this is the first time where we ever did a multi-day tour. Where we were on someone else's schedule. So the first 14 days we did a tour, and then the rest we drove ourselves. And I mean, nothing against the tour operator themselves. I mean, they've been doing this for a long time. They do it is what it is. But I think for us, like we're very independent travelers. I'm a big planner. I had like a 200 line spreadsheet going into New Zealand to make sure I hit a bunch of things. And I just would have done things a little different, right? So I would say that like my advice would be know what kind of traveler you are, and then go towards that, and just realize that the days are a little different in New Zealand, where a lot of their culture is focused around like these activities. It's like kind of breakfast lunch places and activities. There's surprisingly not that many dinner options in a lot of places. It's like a lot of places are more breakfast and lunch. And then also know it's like if you are a little bit more independent and don't want to get the 6:30 a.m. wake up call, and you'd rather drive at night when the sun's down anyways and do things during the day, maybe the tour is not the right thing for you. I think that was for us. It was like we like to drive a lot when the sun goes down, when we can't see things anymore. Like when we're driving through an hour or 2 hours of just farmland, we'd rather do that at night and then be able to do things during the day. But I mean, everyone's got a couple things that are a little different here and there. But that would be my advice: is just know what kind of person you are, and if you are a big planner and enjoy the planning, don't do the tour. Just plan it yourself and just hit the things you want to hit. Or if you're the type of person who's like, nope, I just want to go on something and wake up and be told what to do, and I don't want to have to worry about anything, definitely do the tour, and tour will definitely be for you then.
Good to know. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, so I found our slideshow here. So here we go. Okay.
Absolutely. So here we go. All right. So yeah, so we'll start with the first one. So it's us and actually Hobbiton. The very first location, actual Lord of the Rings location we hit was Hobbiton. So we got some pictures here. My wife and I up there in the top left and the top middle. And then a good friend of ours now, he was in the Gandalf costume, and he went there in the bottom middle there as well. And Hobbiton was really great. I'd say that it all depends on, of course, what you like. The Hobbits have never been super inspiring to either my wife or I. Like I'm a man of the West. My wife is straight up like a miniature Kate Blanchett, so she loves all things elven. And so we were excited to go see it, but it wasn't like, I know some people have this truly like magical experience there. I mean, there were people in our group that were just absolutely in love, and we had a great time. But we never felt like the Shire was home for us. So we're like, oh, this is really cool. And seeing Bag End was super cool. Particularly the Green Dragon being rebuilt was beautiful. But I'd say the one thing to know about Hobbiton when you go in, the name is the Hobbiton movie set, not Hobbiton. And so the one thing that it kind of clicked with me is like when you first walk down the main cutting, the main road, you can clearly see that this was a place where the camera angle was. It is perfect. It is quintessential everything Hobbiton. But if you walk like an extra 100 or 200 feet and then turn to the left, you're like, oh, that's a sheep farm. And so I think that it's like one of those things where for me, I think it's just because I live in Orlando, Florida. I have annual pass to Disney, been to, the Wizarding World of Harry Potter, where it's like a fully immersive experience. I think I was expecting something that was a little bit more immersive. But it's because I specifically wrote it in here, Hobbit movie set, to remind people, remember it's a movie set. So when you hit those pictures, when you hit those quintessential like angles that are perfect for the camera, you're there. You're absolutely there. But don't be disappointed if you look around in a slightly different like angle and you're like, oh, this isn't exactly that. Like for example, in the middle left, the yellow door, that's Sam and Rosie's house. That is nowhere near Bag End. So like if you think that he's going to be living right below Bag End, that's not the case. Right. It's like around the corner down thing. Yeah. So it's like little things like that. But if you just like take it in as the movie set, it's absolutely gorgeous.
Interesting. Like I'd kind of considered that angle of like, is it going to shatter the fantasy? Because for those of us not lucky enough to have been there, it's your positioning of these things in your mind based on how you see them in the movie, and then seeing the actual reality of it. Did you feel that, like, if you watch the movies now, I don't know if you've watched the movie since you come back, it's only been a month. Picture yourself watching them again, and do you feel that your perception when you're watching the movie is now going to be altered because you've seen the real thing, and oh, that's not where we think it is, kind of thing, and there are sheep just around the corner, that sort of thing?
Yeah, I think in some cases, I don't think it's ruined it for me. I think it's given me another level of it. I don't think it's ruined it by any means. I don't think I don't see it necessarily like it. There's a couple locations.
Word ruined, but you know what I mean.
Like, I know what you mean. Yeah. I mean, I don't think it, because we actually did watch, we watched Fellowship on the bus after we had gone through all this. So I actually did watch this thing and I was like, oh, look, I was there. It was actually kind of exciting to rewatch it and be like, oh yeah, I was right there. Right. But in some instances, it's funny, like when we get to the Edoras pictures, it is kind of funny to think that Edoras and Helm's Deep are literally 3 miles apart. Hobbiton and Mount Doom are like a 3-hour drive away from each other. So, I mean, like,
how long to get there at the Fellowship? It took the long way around.
Yeah. I mean, Hobbiton and Mount Doom are literally like they're on the same island. Mount Doom's in like the middle of the North Island, so there's a little bit of that, but I think generally, for me, I think it might have been a little bit the opposite way. I think it was like, I think I hyped up the location so much in my mind because I had just like pure Middle Earth in my mind. So when I got there, it's not that I was disappointed. It was just more along the lines of, oh, okay, there's the shot, absolutely gorgeous, and I have to keep looking at that because if I look in the other direction, I'm looking at a farm. So yeah, I think that's more along the lines of what it was. Yeah.
All right.
So yeah, so this was another location. I feel like with Trollshaws, in most, yeah, and it's going to sound kind of bad, but in actually most of the Lord of the Rings locations, I feel like the pictures do the pictures justice. So how cool the pictures look in all the Lord of the Rings locations is how cool they are in real life. Trollshaws is the one where I felt like it was the opposite. Trollshaws, I don't think these pictures don't do it justice at all for how cool this location is. Those mountains in the top middle corner there, it's like a cliff face. The camera just does not accept the scale of how crazy tall those are when you're next to them. And I keep looking at the pictures right like a camera, but and it's just when you're actually in this location, and again, this is a location I really didn't care about. It's from The Hobbit. I like The Hobbit, don't love The Hobbit, but I didn't really care about. And when I saw the pictures of this place, it's the same thing. I was like, okay, whatever. But this is the one location where I was just like, whoa, this is so different. And then you go up this hill and go into that little forest, and you're literally in this like rainforest type location, like you see in the top right hand corner. And then in the bottom left corner, this is actually kind of like the cave area where they find Glamdring, Sting, and Orcrist. And they had actually built this in and enclosed it a little bit more. Weta did, like with fake rocks to finish that. You see the little skull there. The Weta folks actually really enjoyed the owners of this property. They were such nice people. So they actually left little gifts for them. So there was like, they had a little dagger and some coins and, just random props that they weren't going to need again. And left them there for them. And so they've been great. And the guy kind of standing next to me in the picture next to me, that's one of the owners. He's the son, the primary owner now. Him and his wife are fantastic. And I'm sitting there in the bottom right-hand corner of that little picture. It's hard to see, but this is actually the same stump or rock that Richard Armitage sat at while rehearsing some lines. So, but yeah, it was a really cool location. This one was just one that you could just tell. I mean, it just the natural beauty was just like spoke like a million more words than even the pictures can have. And then in the middle right photo, that little kind of weird looking forest, that's actually where they shot the Mirkwood scenes with the stranger and the Nazgals. I don't know what we're going to call them, but in Rings of Power, when in the very last episode, that was actually the Mirkwood scene
there. The picture on the far left there with the skull, it reminds me of, I don't know if you guys have ever been to like dinosaur museums. We have an excellent one in Alberta, but they have sections sometimes, they're mostly for kids, where they have a pre-made, fake skeleton fossil of a dinosaur buried in the sand, and kids can get some brushes and some shovels and dig for dinosaur bones. And that would be so cool over there if they had like pre-buried Sting. and for an extra $10 you could dig up Sting.
I mean, so you say that, so they actually do have like a knockoff version of Sting, and they bury it under a couple of leaves. And it was funny because my wife was the first one to walk in there, and then the owner, he's like, hey, come over here real quick. And he's like, put your foot right here, shuffle it. And then like she kicked Sting and picked it up.
Oh, that'd be so
so you
cool.
say that, but I mean, that's literally what they did.
Like, I don't care how old you are. If you're as old as Val, I don't care. The little kid inside of you is going to just be so excited at the idea of like picking up Sting.
Absolutely.
Like, it doesn't matter how old you are, you're going to be a little kid in that moment.
Yeah, totally. So, yeah, I mean, so this is just a great location. And then this one here. So this one, I'm gonna go off video for a moment, but I'll keep talking. So this one, this is Gollum's. It's funny if you look online on Google, they'll call this Gollum's fishing pool. Well, he has two fishing pools, right? He's got the Forbidden Pool, which is in Ithilien, and then of course there's this river. And it's funny because if you Google Gollum's fishing pool, you'll see that there's two locations, and this is one of them. I think it's just because enough people didn't realize the difference. But this is the one we went to, was this one, of course, and this is right kind of before the taters scene. And so there's my wife and I standing in the background, exactly where Frodo and Sam were, and then one of the people in our group, we had a little they had a little Gollum mask, and he went for it, man. He went right into the water, got his shoes all wet, and it was not warm. Even though we were there in summertime, it was not warm.
Good for him. Although it would have been warmer than when Andy Serkis had to do it.
that is true. And the crazy thing, and the reason why I wanted to show the other pictures there in the top right of me, and then specifically the waterfall. So this location, like, I mean, the stone where our friend who's Gollum there, the stone where he's at is actually probably only about 10 feet away from the edge of that that waterfall.
Mm-hmm.
And so they actually talked about how Andy got so into it that there were multiple times they were worried he was going to fall off the edge of this thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a beautiful location. This is another location where, this one's funny. You drive up a mountain, there's a tiny little pull-off spot for your car for parking. You go down, maybe literally less than a 30-second walk down 15 stairs, and then you're here. Like, I mean, this is like right off the road. This is not an hour-long hike to get here. And then in the bottom right-hand corner, it was really misty that day. So it was the Misty Mountains, right? No, it was this one's supposed to be the Erebor, but this is actually a very misty, and so we didn't get many good pictures. This is the best one we could actually get. This is actually where in the Hobbit, they were searching for the secret door to Erebor, in the back door. And so they shot that there. And this is another one where this is actually about a 5-minute drive up from Gollum stream. I'll call it Gollum stream instead of Gollum's pool. Gollum stream. And 5 minutes up, and then right off the road there is just this other location where they shot something from The Hobbit. It was right off the road. You can, you can honestly stick your, a selfie stick outside your window while driving and see both these spots. They're just right there sitting there.
Huh.
So yeah, so then we'll get into some of the Weta stuff. So of course, being a sword guy, right, and a prop person, I took a ton of pictures of as many props as I could. Now, unfortunately, when you go into the actual proper tour portion, you're not allowed to take pictures. They said it's for copyright reasons, and of course, like, I mean, I see people like Zorp and all these other YouTubers go to Weta and they can somehow have the cameras in there, but then they're blurring out a lot of the things in the background. And I think it's just because they don't because they have other projects working. I think by now they have the license to Lord of the Rings stuff. But I think it's just because of all the other things they don't want people taking pictures. So this is actually all the props that are just sitting in the Weta Cave, which is the Weta Cave is the area where you can do shopping. So they have kind of a shopping center, and then they have like these under glass display cases that are like into the wall next to the places where you buy stuff. And so this is many of the pictures that I could get, the key ones I wanted to do. So some cool things here. One of the key things that you'll actually see is from my understanding, I don't believe that any of these items are actually hero items. It looks like to me is that in the top right, the Noldorin daggers, the elven hunting knife, as well as Andorol there. I believe those are all actually aluminum. They're not hero props. And then all the ones at the bottom, I believe, are actually all the low weight resin. I'm not sure about the Eowyn. That one was in a corner of a display case. And I couldn't tell if that one was, I think the handle's resin, but I'm not sure about the blade being resin or if it's aluminum. But yeah, but it was really cool to kind of see some of the stuff up close and personal, being within, a couple feet of it. And then once we actually went on the tour, it was great. Like I said, I was handed Guthwine. I was also handed the actor scale aluminum version of Orcrist, which of course is massive because Richard Armitage is not a small dude. So to make him look small and give him a really large sword. So that was kind of cool. We actually got to hold one of Bomber's arm prosthetics in the silicon version. It was crazy. The guy, our tour guide was like, "Oh, here's a sword." Didn't say anything to us, right? But as soon as he handed us the Bomber arm, he's like, "Okay, guys, you got to be really careful with the silicon thing." And we're all like, "Why are you telling us about this, not the sword?" He's like, "Oh, this silicon mold, or I say silicone. The silicone mold this arm is a $1,600 arm, just in cost, not including time." And we're like, "Here you go." Yeah, but all the swords and stuff, there was no be careful. It was just this silicone arm, which is kind of funny. But yeah, so it was cool. We got to see a lot of this. In the room where we couldn't take pictures, they kind of had it was set up in 4 locations. And so one thing to know when you go to Weta Workshop is there's 2 separate tours. The first one is for people who can just walk in. You walk into the Weta Cave, you want to buy something, and then they have I think 30-minute or hour-long tours every hour and a half, something like that. I'm not entirely sure. That's not the tour we want. And those are usually smaller groups. It's typically, I think they do 5 to 10 people in those groups. Then they have a separate room that's it's actually in a warehouse down the street. And it's kind of like a large square room that they've broken up into 4 quadrants. And that's where they take larger tours. So if you're in a large tour group, like the tour I was on, or there's multiple tours who go on this, but it's any group that's kind of over 20 people go into this larger location. And it's not actually in the workshop. So you don't get to see the workshop itself, but it's kind of like a mini museum type thing. So when you first walk in, they talk to you about like sci-fi guns and sci-fi props. So they actually handed us a full kitted out version of a District 9 rifle, and they, super heavy. And they talked about how it's specifically heavy because they have, not only does it have resin, but they also have what's it called? CO2 cartridges in there to actually give it kickback. So when they fire it, they're actually, the actors don't have to act like there's kickback in the firearm. Which is kind of cool. I didn't know that. And then we moved into the prosthetics area. So that's where we got the whole Bomber's arm, and there was like a Hobbit foot, and I think a elf or dwarf ear, which they passed around. And then of course there was just a wall that was just nothing but weaponry. There was swords, axes from everyone and anyone imaginable. But again, none of those were hero swords. There were even a couple that were under glass. And when I looked at them, they didn't look like hero swords. They still looked like they were aluminum, just they were maybe like closer up shots. So I say my only little disappointment was I really wanted to see a hero sword. But also talking with Chris, it was funny. He was just like, yeah, it's crazy that sideshow sword went for 250 grand on auction. He's like, I got the Ian McKellen original just like sitting leaned up against my desk against the wall.
I've heard that. It's hard to even like it, and one time that makes me sad.
Yeah, right. I was like just leaned up against your desk in a corner. What?
I know, right?
Just at least hang it up on the wall.
It belongs in a museum.
Yeah, exactly, right. And so but I mean, it was cool. I mean, I think the coolest thing, I mean, I get why they don't, right? Because they actually encourage you. They're like, hey, be careful, but you can touch it. You can touch most things in here. So they actually they say, hey, you want to hold this sword and stuff. And so I can get why they don't do the hero stuff. It's more dangerous. Of course, it's, we're talking about a Commonwealth country, so we don't worry about insurance and healthcare and all that, right? So you give someone something that's aluminum or resin, there's a lot less chance of hurt, with damage. But yeah, I mean, it was a really cool experience just being around all that. And then the last little section was about miniatures. So they had like a miniature, I think it was like Haradrim, like the things that were on the back of the Mumakil or something. They had some like smaller, I know it wasn't Gondorian, it was something, it seemed like Southron. Some miniatures over there, which were really cool. And they showed us how they kind of blew stuff up on the miniature level. So it was a really cool experience. It's one place where I definitely wish I could spend more time. Again, I'm not one of those people who get starstruck. When I used to work at Disney, I met a bunch of famous people, and you quickly find when you meet a lot of famous people that they're just human, right? So for me, it was like not even about like being starstruck. I just like that creative side of me was just like that spark was reigniting. So I just wanted to sit there in the workshop and be like, give me something menial to do. Make me your apprentice. I will clean swords. I will grind things. I'll take sandpaper. I was like, I just want to do, like, I got so inspired to do things with my hands. And so like, that was the thing, like the one thing I wish that day, I could have just spent a whole day there, just like being an apprentice to Chris, which is Peter's apprentice. Like I would have been fine with that.
Just quick there, that Gondorian infantry sword. United Cutlery really needs to give us a replica of that. It's such a cool sword. Like it doesn't even get really any screen time, but it's so cool looking.
Yeah. I love that pommel, right?
Yeah.
It's 7 levels. Yeah. It's Ministerial.
Yeah.
And so it's such a cool sword. And I mean, honestly, even if they went with Denethor's sword has a very similar motif to it, so they could at least do that. Yeah, who knows what they choose when they do? Like when Isildur came out, I was like, "What? Isildur?" Out of all the like, not Faramir, Isildur. But hey, we're finally getting Faramir swords. So, yeah. But yeah, so then here's just a little collection of a lot of different things. We took a couple helicopter rides in Wellington, right next to right down the street from Weta. You have the get off the road scene. So this is on the top of Mount Victoria. So this is where the Nazgul bends down, and I mean, so funny. So many people have sat here. This thing is so worn away. So you can see my wife and me like rolling my eyes like Frodo. And so it's worn down so much, and the tree was never there in real life. It was added, but it's really cool. Like the shot of like you sitting there and pretending like the Nazgul's there, not really that cool. But when you first get on the street and you see that picture on the left, and you first see that, like this is one of those cases where it's like no matter how old I get, if I go on that road and there isn't like a fire or something that destroys this, the first thing when I hit that road, my mind did the same thing the movie did, where it zooms in.
That weird effect.
Being there in person, it was like an optical illusion. Like for the first 3 seconds, I had to like blink and do this to like, it was that one was really cool. That was one of those. That was probably, again, like the Hobbiton movie set. It was clearly a movie set, right? Because you have again like the way the Hobbit holes are made. They're made out of that kind of like resin concrete, so they look really good from far away. You get close, it kind of has that Disney effect. So it was really cool. But this was the first time, because this was actually the first like natural location we went to from Lord of the Rings, where I got to it, and like I immediately was like, I had like an equilibrium moment where I was like, am I in Middle Earth right now? Which was kind of cool. And it's great because this was literally a 15-minute walk, because it's a very steep hill, and I'm not that well in shape, but 15-minute walk from the hotel. So that was really cool.
It's probably why so many people go there.
Yeah, I mean, so many people go there because it's literally just, I mean, this is in the middle of Wellington. And it honestly, the best part is though, you get halfway up this hill, and it's so quiet. I mean, generally speaking, again, I don't know how Canada is, but in Orlando and just in the United States in general, like if you're in a major metropolitan city, no matter how far away you get, it's not quiet. Even in Wellington and Auckland and all the big cities, like it's so quiet. And then you go into a park, and even this park in the middle of the city, and it becomes almost silent. It's crazy.
It's Queen's Park, right? Is there a plaque that marks the spot where Frodo gets off the road?
No, there isn't a plaque. They have a couple maps at the entrances where they show a couple of the locations on the map, and then of course Google Maps give full signal here, but there's no plaque that actually marks it.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. In the top there, Dimmerell Dale. That's where when they exited Moria. We took a helicopter ride. Unfortunately, because of weather, we weren't really able to land there or in the bottom location. We weren't able to fully land there, which is supposed to be where it's very close to where Boromir's teaching the hobbits how to fight. So you have the Dimmerell Dale, and then the road outside of Rivendell as well. So that's actually outside of Nelson. So we're kind of transporting here in the slide to the South Island. So we took a helicopter ride from Nelson to go to those two locations. And then in the top right-hand corner, of course, we talked about my Villia. And then there's Halfdan, who's the son of Jens. And he now runs the jewelry. And so you see my wife there. She's holding this giant one ring. And I didn't actually know this. This is one of those cases where I learned something on my tour, which I hadn't known before. I didn't realize that in the Council of Elrond, when they wanted to show the reflections of the people arguing in the Council of Elrond, as well as when they wanted to show the reflection of Boromir on the top of Carathas in the snow, it's actually this giant ring, because the cameras were not good enough to get a reflection from a ring so small. So they made this giant ring to get the mirror effect, so they could actually see it.
Cool.
Yeah, and this thing weighs like, I don't know, 8-10 pounds.
I was looking at it first. I thought, is that a crown or a circlet or something? And that's the ring.
Yeah,
that's amazing.
I did actually know that, and then there was a guy last year in I don't know if he was from Alberta here, but he made his own giant ring, and when the Hobbits came through here, he got them all to sign it, and I think he even flew to London and got Andy Serkis to sign it last year. So
that's awesome. Yeah, you can actually buy these. So Jens sells every version of the One Ring. They sell the Weta versions, they sell the non-Weta versions where it's like full 24 karat gold, 14 karat. They sell every version, and then they do sell this version. It is gold-plated steel, I think. And I think it was like 8,000 dollars. But it's not solid gold, but it's like gold-plated steel. But it's really cool. And then of course I bought Villia, and then my wife actually she liked this original Jens Henson 1960s 1970s design from Jens that they reproduced, and our favorite color is green. So I was like, hey, if I'm getting a ring, you can get a ring too. Yeah. And then there in the bottom right-hand corner, that's just a little area in the South Island outside of Nelson. Just not Lord of the Rings, but beautiful location to fill the white spot in this in this presentation.
Does do they make the Sauron size One Ring? I know there's one out there.
They do. Jens can make, like I said, they make every version. They can make a Sauron size, which is yay big, and I think they can do it in 24 karat. But it'd be ungodly expensive. So I think they said that they recently, what did Halfdan say? I think he said that he hasn't sold any of the really big ones lately, but he did sell a Sauron sized one that was silver gold plated, I think. It wasn't gold solid, I think it was silver gold plated. And that one was like 3 or 4,000. Oh yeah, it was crazy. But yeah, they do make, and that, yeah, I don't have a picture of it here, but they do actually have a case in their store that has like every version of the one.
Oh, cool.
I will say though, yeah, the pictures on their website of the Ring of Beara here, it's a beautiful ring, but I was like, I don't know if I should get it. But when I saw it in person, I'm like, that's actually, you know, when I talk about that spreadsheet, the new version of Vigo's, or their version of Vigo's ring, is like up in the top 5 of my things that I want.
Yeah, I know there is, I don't know if it's 100 like edition size, but there is a Sauron sized ring out there, and it's got a nice fancy wooden box, and I think it's only an edition size of 100. I can't remember if they're a Jensen ring, or I can't remember. Maybe somebody in the comments can let us know.
Let us know.
Is that it?
No, that's it. I think that's it for this slide.
Okay. There we go.
Yeah. So, just make sure that we got all this still going. Still hear me, right?
Yeah.
All right. Perfect. Yeah. So this is Eddora / Helm's Deep. You don't realize how close they are. So on the top left-hand corner, that is Mount Sunday on the hike to Mount Sunday. So it's about you go down a dirt road, and you park in a parking lot. And at that point, you have about a 10 to 15 minute walk to the base. And then depending on how in shape you are, you've got a 10 to 15 minute walk up to the top. It's there's only one area that's kind of steep, and the rest of it's actually a nice little incline. So it's a good hike for those of you who enjoy that. You know, it's funny when you see it from afar, it's actually a little underwhelming, of course, because you don't have it. But as soon as you get up close, it's absolutely gorgeous. And so in the top right hand corner, that's my wife. She's standing on the top. It's like, that is like literally like the tippy top of Mount Sunday, and the Golden Hall was built right in front of that stone that she's standing on. And then I went over and stood next to her, and then looked to the, like when you're standing there, if I look to the left from where she is, you actually get to see in the bottom left-hand corner. I know it's a little hard, but if you were to zoom in on the base of of kind of that left mountain there, you'll see a little dark patch. And that little dark patch is a patch of trees that actually stand like 50 feet tall. And if you were to super zoom into that in high res, you'll see this tiny little white speck, which is actually a 2-story building. So when you're at the top of Mount Sunday, I think it's 4 miles to that little patch of trees you can see. And in that little dell between those two mountains is actually where they shot Vigo riding on Brago, or whatever the horse's name was in real life. So Aragorn riding Brago into Helm's Deep after falling, having the little tumble off the cliff. And so, yeah, it's kind of one of those things where it's a little funny when you're there. You're like, oh, the people of Eddora had to go on this really long journey to Helm's Deep, which is 4 miles right there. And you can see it from the top.
That's cool.
And then there's about 3 rivers or streams you have to cross. Luckily, there's bridges now. Back in the olden days, all the veterans in New Zealand said that they'd actually have to wade through the river depending on how crazy it was. But you see in the bottom right hand corner, that's one of the little streams that you'd have to cross over. There's a little bridge now, and then there's actually that's one of the mountains in the background next to Mount Sunday. But yeah, that was a beautiful location. I think for us, it's just about how you travel. For us, there were 60 people on our tour. So even though Mount Sunday is large, it's not huge. And so having kind of 60 people, and yes, we love our fellow nerds and geeks, and I'm actually a super extrovert, but being around 60 people in an area that you kind of like if my wife and I would have preferred it if we were there alone, or at least with a much smaller group, because we really just wanted to kind of just like sit and meditate and take it in, because it was such a grand location. You're in a mountain surrounded by mountains, Mm-hmm. And I think this was the area where I think for us, like, if we go back to New Zealand, we'd definitely go. This is one of the places we'd have to hit again, and just go there with like maybe us and like 2 or 3 of our really good friends that we would take with us, and just have a day where we're just kind of like picnicking and enjoying the area, rather than kind of doing the super touristy things or getting our picture with the flag of Rohan or whatever.
Was it one of the few days where it wasn't windy there, or?
Oh, it was windy.
Yeah.
It was very windy. That flag is being held on by 2 hands by someone. And every time that flag was handed to a smaller individual, anyone who was kind of under 150 pounds, they did not have an easy time holding it. Awesome. It was yeah. So my wife and I, we were up at the summit probably for about 15-20 minutes, and then the wind got so much we actually went not halfway down, but we went I'd say like maybe a quarter of the way down on the opposite side of the wind, just to escape the wind and just enjoy the quiet. So that's kind of what we did. But yeah, it was extremely windy. So when you get the story about that flag ripping off the pole, I mm-hmm. definitely see how that would go.
I feel so sad for the construction crews who had to build up there, who were in the wind constantly working. Oh man.
Yeah. And it's kind of cool. When it comes to New Zealand, with their filming requirements and whatnot with the companies, they always say that you have to return every blade of grass, and of course that's not actually what happens. But they did a really good job of building around this. And then I think the only requirement, because again, this is on private property, this is on a land of farmers, and it's called Mount Sunday. If you want a little piece of trivia, why it's called Mount Sunday, it's because this was actually a meeting point of like the big farmers of the area. Every Sunday, or the first Sunday of the month, they would all meet to discuss the things that are going on in the valley, on the farms. And so that's why it's called Mount Sunday, by the way. So a little trivia there. But I think the only requirement that the farmer had was, hey, it's like my father buried a dog up there, so don't dig up the dog's grave. And so the bell tower of Edoras is actually built around the structure of the tombstone of the dog, and it's just completely enclosed. So they didn't touch it; they just built around it, and then took it down and didn't disturb the family pet.
That is something I did not know. That is a cool bit of info.
Yeah. So, yeah, this is definitely, I'd say that like out of all the Lord of the Rings locations, Mount Sunday was definitely the most epic for us. We are the last name Kon is actually the Polish word for horse. So I do, even though I feel like I'm a man of Gondor because of my looks, my last name does mean horse. So I have some affinity to Rohan. So Edoras was amazing there. I think for us, I think I'd have so much more like spiritual things to say about it if we were alone, because there was a lot of people all at once taking pictures.
Out of all the locations, other than like you mentioned the troll shells, but did you feel like you were in Middle Earth there?
Yeah, I think so. It was the moments when Lisa and I had some time alone, and if the wind blew in the direction where away from the crowd, or the crowd away from us, so we didn't hear people. Definitely. I think that this was one of those places for sure. And I'd say that honestly, like in our tour group, the majority, I would say that if you were to take a poll for people, it's probably a close to 50-50 split between people who think that Hobbiton's the best or Edoras is the best. And if I had to choose between the two, I mean, hands down, I go for Edoras, because this is just, especially that bottom left picture, like you're standing on the summit and you just look around and you see that. Even with the gray skies, it's something else.
It sure is.
Yeah, and so this was another area where, this is so Lake Town on the top. You see there. This was the area which was probably, if you said, Christian, you've got to take Castle Kon and put it somewhere in New Zealand, where would you do it? If I didn't think about logistics and food and amenities, then I would choose Lake Town. I'd build my house right where I'm sitting with my wife there in the top right-hand corner. There's no way to explain it, but when you actually see this water in person, like I said, it's almost like blue milk. It's like it reflects, because it's got the microparticles from the glacier runoff. It is the bluest water you've ever seen, like the bluest of blue water. Like when we're in the Caribbean or in the west coast of Florida, it's very like teal. This is like Tiffany baby blue. It's crazy. And it looks milky, but then when you look in the top left-hand corner, you can actually see through it. So as soon as it gets a little less deep, it's perfectly clear. It's the weirdest thing. I was funny. I just recently reread the chapter of Lothlorien from the Fellowship, and they described Lothlorien as having this like total otherworldly, like just feeling, like, even in the winter, it glows both silver and gold. And it's like all the things of the description of Galadriel's hair. It's like both silver and gold, the sun of the light of the moon and the sun, right? The light of the two trees. And I felt that in Lake Town. That's the place where both my wife and I, we just sat there and we just stared for like 20 minutes. And that was a place, I think this is like really the first time where we got to totally decompress for some time. And this location was much bigger. So a lot of our tour group, they went and did some archery and stuff, and we have an archery thing in our backyard, so we didn't care to do that. But we just kind of found this little spot tucked away and just used to have Mount Cook in the background. It was, this was a place where it was like, we're in Middle Earth. We're in some place that I've never seen before. And if I could build a castle right there, it would. The farmer who owns this is absolutely nuts as well. He's for a lot of people probably very offensive, but I think our tour guide referred to him as New Zealand's Willy Wonka. He's very eccentric. He has a collection of mannequins that he likes to pose in not safe for work positions. He knows nothing about Lord of the Rings, but like will just told hilarious stories about how the producers, he'd be talking to the producers and they'd be like, oh, I'm sorry, hold on. Yeah, so can we get this over here? Blah, blah, blah. Oh yeah, what'd you need again? And so what he did was he took like an old ham radio and put it into his hat and put like a little thing down and pretended as if like he was taking calls for the farm when producers were talking to him to make them feel like this guy was a riot. I mean, I did like, but I will say he was quite offensive at the same time. So he was an interesting character, but so this is that's in the South Island. And in the bottom left, you have Pelennor Fields. And now this is one of those locations where you actually spend a very little amount of time at. Pelennor Fields is a active cow farm. And it genuinely is just a field. As much as like it was cool to kind of stand in the location where the Rohirrim charged over and over and over again. This was a place for my wife and I. We were there, and like if we were there alone and not with the tour group, we would have been there for 5 minutes and walked away. It was like, okay, cool, we saw it, let's go. It definitely did not have the same effect as Edoras or Lake Town for us. Yeah, and I think everyone on our tour was kind of the same. The guy who did the Gollum mask, he's also the one who Lisa's stabbing in the face there as the Witch King. So that's that. Keelan, and then in the bottom right there, again, fill in some space. It was we did a little costume contest at Weta. So there's my wife in her custom Galadriel from Canada, by the way, from Valkyrie Custom Wear. So we spent a really long time looking for that fabric to get that Starburst effect, and then of course me in the farmer gear. And then another one of our the guy who did Gandalf at Hobbiton, he did his little version of fancy Anatar, he gave out rings to people.
Oh, cool.
So, and that's at the Roxy Theater, which is Roxy Cinema, which is a theater that's owned by Peter Jackson and Richard Taylor. So we had a little event there, which was kind of cool.
Cool. As an Albertan, this slide, like, it looks a lot like Southern Alberta. Like we have Lake Louise and Moraine Lake that are very similar, like that turquoise, like milky blue.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have a lot of prairie in Alberta. And man, as an Albertan who knows how to ride, boy, going down to that field in Swizel, I would give my kingdom for a horse to be able to ride on that same field.
I'm sure that if you contact the one thing I'll say about New Zealand, if you wanted more advice, right? A lot of the locations, I think the Pelennor Fields, I think that the farmer really has an exclusive relationship with the tour guide we went on red carpet. But almost everywhere else, Waitomo, the Trollshaws, Lake Town, if you just email them and say, hey, we'll give you $50 or $100 New Zealand to come tour, they'll let you on them. Like, at least from my understanding, they'll let you on the property. I know a lot of people just sneak on, but I don't think that's cool. Like, it's their property. No. So I wouldn't do that. But if you email them, a lot of them are really nice, and you can do it. And hey, maybe you can say, hey, I'm from wherever. I'll pay you X amount of money, and can I ride a horse across your land? I highly doubt she'll say no.
Man, that would be epic to be able to charge on the Pelennor Fields on a horse. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, just be aware there are rabbit holes. There's a lot of rabbit holes.
Very true.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, Pelennor Fields was a cool location, but I think for us, it was like, especially after seeing the epicness of Edoras, you're like, all right. So then this one, when we go further south to Queenstown, this is all these locations are about a 2-hour drive from Queenstown. So this is in the Mavora Lakes area. So it's actually fairly close to Milford Sound and whatnot, by the birds. Crows fly. Of course, it takes like 6 hours to get there by bus because of all the wines. But so in the top left, that's the Silverlode River. This is one of the locations. So when the Fellowship leaves Lothlorien, there's multiple locations. When they first push off, that's on private property. They don't allow people on there anymore. The second major location where you see them going down the river is here in the top left-hand corner on the Silverlode. And then they have multiple shots going down multiple rivers, honestly, in New Zealand for the rest of the Anduin. But this is kind of like the first major shot of them on the open water would be here in the Silverlode River. And we bought some New Zealand jade greenstone. Punamu is the local Maori word for it. And it's custom that you bless the jade or the greenstone in running water of New Zealand before gifting it to someone. So we blessed all of our greenstone that we got as gifts in the Silverlode. So it was kind of cool. We had a little bit of Maori, take home gifts for people, but we also got to bless them in a Lord of the Rings location, which was kind of cool. In the middle there, you have 2 locations outside of Fangorn. So there's 3 of our people on the tour were pretending to be Legolas, Gimli, and Aragorn there. I made those small pictures, and the reason why is because there's actually a lot of CGI in these. If you go look at the shot in the movie, you'll see that those trees are very heavily replaced by a mixture of like Weta studio shots, and I think probably some John Howe or Alan Lee kind of matte paintings. Because the Fangorn forest trees are a lot more dangerous looking than the fluffy ones that you see there. But that is the exact location. And then the same in the bottom there, you see a little hard, but if you were to zoom in on that, there's a bunch of people from our tour laying down in the field, piled up like orc bodies. And there's actually a little spike with a orc mask on it, and so that's where they burn the orc bodies. Of course, that big bush wasn't there at the time, but that's been growing over the last 20 years. And then the other three are all actually, so the Frodo hiding spot, the Merry and Pippin hiding spot, and then the Breaking of the Fellowship. Those are all, this is so funny. This is another, it's amazing how many locations are literally just right off the road. So you go down in here and there's like literally a big campsite. I mean, when we were there were like multiple campers or RVs or caravans, if you want to call it like that, like they do in Europe, just parked. And then literally a 1 to 2 minute walk from that campsite is the Breaking of the Fellowship location where, Frodo's standing there with the ring, and then Sam comes and gets him, and we all know that poor Sean Astin cuts his foot on a piece of glass. And the reason why he cuts his foot on a piece of glass there is because this is literally a camping spot. Like, I mean, people camp right here on a weekend, and then the two hiding spots are literally a 2 minute walk into the woods right to the right of that shot. So you see the little, my wife's hiding behind the tree sitting where Elijah put his butt, and then the Merry and Pippin hiding spot that looks a little different because that tree was actually hit by lightning. But that's the spot where Merry and Pippin were hiding when they're like, Frodo, come this way. So
what are the odds that filming spot got hit by lightning?
Right? Yeah, crazy. Yeah. So yeah, it's kind of funny, but I know that one of the questions that I get asked lots when I come back is like, does it look totally different? And it's like, yeah, there are some things, right? Like Fangorn looks different, specifically because that big bush there and the trees kind of gone. But like that Silverlode River shot is like straight out of it. That the Frodo hiding shot is straight out of it. The Breaking of the Fellowship shot. If you go to the movie, you'll see that little tiny bald spot on the hill in the background in the shot. Like that's still there. I mean, the branches of that tree have broken, so the swinging of the branches are not exactly the same, but it is the same shoreline. So yeah, I mean, it was I'd say that most of the locations still feel like the locations. Sometimes it feels a little off, but I mean that's just time. And as Tolkien said, when the rings of power and the elves fade away, the magic gets lost over time sometimes, but it's still there a little bit.
Definitely. Yeah, the tree where Frodo hides looks very much similar. Same with the Breaking of the Fellowship spot. Yeah,
it's right there. Yeah, and I think there's a couple of things where you go to different locations. Like I don't think I have it in here. Is this the last slide? I think this might be the last slide.
Yeah, I think so, because it's not letting me.
Yeah, it's the last one. So yeah, I mean, I didn't have many other pictures. We did go on another helicopter tour, but we didn't actually get to land in any of the locations because of weather, unfortunately. We did do a 4x4 tour in and where we actually went and driving up the river where Arwen does her "If You Want Him, Come and Claim Him" Glorfindel moment. But yeah, so we went there, and it was interesting because we're literally at the location where you're supposed to have 9 Nazgul and Arwen, and you're like, it looks right, but something looks wrong. And then we talked to our tour guide on that one from Nomad Tours, and she's like, yeah, if you actually look at this photo, you'll see that if you look at the ground, it looks correct. But they chose this particular spot because it was easy to get 10 horses here. But in the film, they actually went further down the Dart River and they took a picture of like steeper cliff faces and then superimposed that on this location. So you have to go to 2 different locations to get that one. So there's quite a few moments like that where you're like, oh yeah, there's the movie magic. But it's like I was telling Val earlier, it's not that it ruined it for me. It was just like, okay, that's cool. It's you see something different, and that's gives you a different perspective.
Definitely. Well, thank you so much, Revan, for sharing that your tour experience with us. It was great to really pick someone's brain about having been there. We all dream about doing that, and it's cool that you actually went and did it. And so thank you for sharing that with us.
Yeah, I think the big thing I'd say from both my wife and I is we've been talking to a lot of our friends about this as well, because we have a lot of really heavy Lord of the Rings friends too. We're like, oh, was it the best experience you ever had? And it was, and we came back from it, and it's not that it was bad, but I think it was one of those things where they always tell you don't meet your heroes because you might be a little disappointed. And so I would say that if anyone's going, the only thing I could really give is like, go in knowing that there is movie magic, and don't go in thinking you're going to find exactly the Middle Earth feeling. And then you'll be amazingly surprised when you do, and you won't be disappointed in the locations you don't. Right. I think that the mistake that I had made, both my wife and I, was that New Zealand was our #1 bucket list item. It was like, we have our list of all the places we want to travel, and New Zealand was #1. And that's when we said, like, hey, we met on Lord of the Rings video game. We have Lord of the Rings rings for our wedding. We have Lord of the Rings in our wedding. We're having our honeymoon in New Zealand. Right. And so I think for us, we might have hyped up the magic a little too much. And so when we got to a location, we're like, wow, this is really cool. And then it might have faded a little fast in some locations. And that's why I said, like, maybe that's why Lake Town and Trollshaws were so great for us, because we didn't expect anything from it. So I would say that when you go there, just expect, I'm not saying expect horrible, because everything was great, but just don't expect it to have that like elven magical feeling every step of the way. And then you'll be surprised when it does, because I think it affects everyone a little differently. Like I said, some of our friends on that tour, they love Hobbiton. They literally are like Australian. They come back to Hobbiton once or twice a year. And I'm like, cool, I've seen Hobbiton. I'm good. I'd rather go back to Lake Town or Edoras. I don't really need to go back to Hobbiton. And then I'm sure they still feel the same way about the locations that I love. So I think it's just like, because we love this so much and it's so ingrained in our, just who we are. We're nerds and geeks to the core, right? And for a lot of us, it's like, the amount of times we've read the movie or read the books or watched the movies and connected with these characters, their locations. I think it's like, just go in there with a super open mind and not with super high expectations. And then there's no way to be disappointed, and you'll go on an adventure. Really, really, I think that's the thing. That's the rule. Enjoy the adventure, not the destinations, because that's going to be that's what makes you really love the parts of New Zealand that are the best.
So it's glad to hear there's still a little bit of magic left in.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of bit of magic. It's just like for us, it was just in places we didn't expect. So yeah, I think that's it. It's such a cool place, and I would definitely go back. Just do things differently for us.
Fair enough. Well, thank you so much, Revan, for your time this evening and for sharing with us your trip and your collection.
Yes.
Thank you so much. And for those listening, thank you for sticking with us. And, as always, drop by the Ultimate Collectors Forum or the Flame of Udun. And if you have any United Cutlery needs and Weta now, be sure to stop by Castle Kon. And thank you for a good evening. It was great.
Thanks, man.
Absolutely. Thank you guys for having me.
Good night.
Good night.
Have a good one.